All right, in today's episode of WTF we're going to be talking about covered calls. Now, I use the term covered call a lot in my other videos, and the reason being is because they make up a huge part of my overall investing strategy. All right, with that being said, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, then there are a lot better resources out there by people who are a lot more qualified than me. I am just doing this as a brief overview, so if you are watching my other videos, then you have some vague idea of what it is I'm actually talking about. All right. So, WTF is a covered call. Covered call is basically an obligation to sell 100 shares of a stock at a predetermined price in exchange for a predetermined non-refundable cost. Now, that cost is not a cost to you. That cost is going to be a cost to a buyer of a call. And that cost that they pay is going straight into your pocket. The only real condition to selling covered calls is that you have to have 100 shares of the underlying stock that the option contract is for. All right, so why would anybody sell a covered call? Well, there's two main reasons. The first is that a person believes that a stock won't rise above a certain price, but they do think that over time the stock is going to increase. So this way, if they think that it's a slow growing stock, they can milk out some extra returns, which leads us into number two. So every time you sell a contract to a covered call, as long as it expires worthless, you just get to keep that money. So you're basically double dipping on a stock because you're realizing the gains over a long period of time through the growth of the stock, but then you're also immediately getting cash in your pocket by selling the contract that hopefully expires worthless. Okay, so this is going to be a snapshot of Tesla, and we're going to look at the options chain here. Now, if you take a look right here, we're going to see the date. Now, there's contracts for, it depends on the stock, but if it's a really big stock and it's a very hyped up stock, there's going to be one for just about every week. So this is going to be the date that the contract expires. Now, if the contract expires under the strike that you sell it for, then you get to keep that whole premium. So if we sold a strike here at 1,090 and the stock is currently at 923.5, if we sold a covered call here, as long as it is below 1090, then nothing happens, except we just get to keep that money that the call buyer paid for the option to buy it. Now, if it does go above 1,090, then we are forced to sell. So say Tesla had a huge run up and it went up to $2,000, but we had sold this covered call. The most we would get is $290 plus the premium we received for selling the covered call. The person who bought the contract gets to keep everything else. They basically get to buy 100 shares of a $2,000 stock for $1,090. All right, so how much premium do you actually get? Well, it depends on a bunch of different factors, and the biggest one being time, but it's almost always going to fall between bid and ask. You have a little bit of wiggle room between the bid and the ask, but you look at your strike and you see we have the ask here and the bid here. So you're typically going to get somewhere in the middle of that. And like I said, you have a little wiggle room, but for the most part, it's pretty much always going to be whatever the average of the bid and ask is. So for the 1090, it would probably be around 32.50, something like that, somewhere around there. And like I said, and these are constantly changing, so you got to look for good opportunities, and it depends on a variety of factors. Now, if you really want to get into that, like I said, there's a lot better resources out there for it. This is just a brief overview so people know what I'm talking about. All right, so what are the risks to selling covered calls? Well, the biggest one is, like we just talked about, you lose out on the potential profit of the underlying, which is the stock price. Like I said, if you sold a contract for $1,090 as a strike, if the stock shoots up to $2,000, then you lose $910, and the person buying the contract gets that. The other issue is your shares are completely locked down until that contract expires. You can't sell a covered call, have your 100 shares, because you have to have the 100 shares as collateral for the covered call. So you can't turn around and then sell your shares. You have to hold on to them for the life of the contract. Now, you can buy back your contract, but that's typically going to cost more than what you sold it for, so you will end up losing money. The only time you would do that is if for some reason your opinion changed and you think the stock is going to skyrocket, or you just really, really don't want to lose the stock, which sometimes happens. You don't always hit home runs with this type of thing. However, those are the two real risks. If they do get realized, I mean, you can always buy back in. The big one is, like I said, if the price shoots way up, then you're going to be buying back in for an amount potentially worth way more than what you currently owned it on, and you lost out on all that growth getting up to that point. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I hope that helped. There's a lot to it. I really want to keep these things as simple as possible. If you're interested in learning more, though, like I said, there's tons of people out there who make really good videos. Kamikaze Cash makes really good videos. In the Money makes really good videos. There's tons of people. But I just want to do a brief overview. That way people knew what I was talking about. And yeah, if you got any questions, leave them below. I'll do my best to answer them. Hope everybody's doing good, and have a good night.